Joining me this morning, especially to Christina Hebert, who joins us from Ward's Marine Electric, and to Mark Schoeneman, who's here with the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 487, and also to Scott Dunbar, the Senior Vice President of Eisman & Russo Consulting Engineers. As many of you know, in July, Republicans released a 6-year federal highway and transit proposal that is nothing short of a road to ruin. Rather than boosting job creation like we should be doing right now, the Republican plan calls for a 33% reduction across the board, cutting some 600,000 construction jobs alone. This number is unacceptable at a time when we need to be spurring job creation and growing our economy. It also delays our roads and bridges from getting the repairs and improvements that they badly need. As many of us here in South Florida know all too well, continuing to work, picking up the kids from school, or just trying to get across town, traffic is already bad enough. In fact, I experienced that firsthand trying to get my son across town to the doctor this morning, and had the pleasure of riding in 595 stop-and-go traffic. Just yesterday, the President directed federal agencies to prioritize infrastructure projects that will create jobs right now. He also announced that a projects dashboard will be created so that everyone can track the progress of the projects going on all over the country and provide feedback. Yesterday, the President called on Congress to pass the transportation bill that will expire at the end of this month when we return to Washington next week. I intend to encourage all of my colleagues to heed that call and vote in favor of protecting and creating jobs and improving our roads, bridges, and mass transit systems. If we let the transportation bill expire at the end of this month, more than 4,000 workers will be immediately furloughed without pay across the country. If it's delayed for just 10 days, we'll lose nearly $1 billion in highway funding, and that is money we can never get back. And if it's delayed even longer, almost 1 million workers could lose their jobs over the course of the next year. We must be investing in ways to cut down on traffic congestion, shorten our commute, and save people time and money that could be better spent. We know that investments in infrastructure work. Just last week, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office released a report about how the Recovery Act has been helping the economy and creating jobs. The report shows that in the second quarter of this year, the Recovery Act, with investments in infrastructure, funded more than 550,000 full-time jobs. But the Republicans choose to ignore this fact. Their transportation plan provides funding for highway work for only half the country, leaving the other half to wait until next time, or whenever that is, when maybe there'll be enough money, just maybe, and jobs to go around. They want us to do more with less. But at the end of the day, all you get with less funding is less production, and that means fewer jobs and more congestion. In Florida alone, a Republican plan in Florida alone cuts over $600,000 for transportation projects, which means we're looking at a loss of more than 21,000 construction jobs right here in Florida alone. And how is that going to help families who are struggling to put food on the table? How is that going to improve our economy? It won't. While we all agree that we need to tighten our belt to get a handle on our nation's deficit, the way to do it is through smart cuts that don't hurt our hard-working middle-class families. We need to put our country back on the path toward prosperity, as President Obama has been doing, and we're beginning to turn things around. And that means doing what the President has called for, creating and encouraging important infrastructure projects that will create much-needed American jobs. We must encourage future innovation by investing in a transportation system fit for the 21st century. And that's what I will be fighting for, while also looking for ways to create jobs, grow our economy, and get our fiscal house in order. Now I'd like to turn the podium over to Mark Schoeneman, who will tell us more about what it's like on the ground and how important construction jobs are here in South Florida. Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Yeah, I'd like to say, it's one thing that we're talking about, like jobs. The construction workers in the South Florida area do not have them. We have a great opportunity here to invest in our South Florida area, all over the country, put construction workers back to work. Our problem is we got double-digit unemployment. I've got members who've lost their homes, have no health care whatsoever, can't find an opportunity to get jobs in the area. They do construction, that's what they do for a living. And here we have the opportunity to put them to work, build up our infrastructure, have better commutes, better airports, better shipping lanes like we need out here to bring commerce into this area. And I'm hoping and pleading on behalf of all the members I represent, heavy equipment operators like you see behind me,
Congresswoman. As the Congresswoman mentioned, a third-generation business owner and a business 61 years in Eastern Broward County. Commute times are extremely important to all of our employees. That's time away from their family, that's time away from their job. My most important goal, though, however, is as a mother. I spend a lot of time. We have to redefine commute times. I've missed the first kickoff of my son's football game because it took too long. Rush hour is being completely redefined. No longer are we in the 7 to 8:30 or between 5 and 6. I've had to leave my office to get to, as I said, a football kickoff time, and it's taken far too long. We need to make sure that these jobs stay in place so that this construction progress can move forward, that our jobs can be functional, and our time with our families at home or with dinner, not on the road. Sure, it's Christina, K-R-I-S-T-I-N-A. Last name Hebert, H-E-B-E-R-T.
And the name of your
Is Wards, W-A-R-D''S, Marine Electric.
Last but not least, I'd like to welcome Scott Gombard to the podium.
Good morning. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Representative Wasserman Schultz for allowing me to provide some personal insight into this issue of infrastructure investment, and also for bringing the issue to the national spotlight. I'm a principal at Eisman & Russo, a 150-member Florida-based consulting engineering firm. And over the past few years, my partners and I have been struggling with Washington's uncertainty towards infrastructure spending, such as multiple last-minute extensions to the transportation bill, and most recently the partial shutdown of the Federal Aviation Administration. Let me start off by giving a few facts about the benefits of the infrastructure industry as it relates to job creation and economic gains. According to the most recent United States Department of Transportation information, every $1 billion spent on transportation equates to approximately 28,000 jobs. In Florida, every single dollar invested in the Department of Transportation 5-year work program results in a $5 to $7 benefit to our state's economy. We also need to capitalize on today's historic lows in the cost of construction. In other words, taxpayers are simply getting a greater value today for every dollar spent. Any spending that promotes the use of existing skills of the American unemployed worker will have a meaningful impact towards putting people back to work, and infrastructure spending is one way to make that big impact. For the reality check, if we do not adequately fund infrastructure investment, cuts in infrastructure investment equals loss of jobs, plain and simple. Nationwide infrastructure maintenance needs are not being met. If infrastructure is not adequately funded, quality of life will decline. It is a fact that nearly 30% of Florida's recent job loss came from the construction industry. My own firm in recent years experienced a 20% reduction in staff. With the completion of many American Recovery and Reinvestment Act transportation projects, also known as ARA projects, and no additional funding forthcoming to replace those dollars, the result will be fewer projects in the pipeline, more projects deferred to some future date, and more private sector job loss. As an engineer concerned with the future of our industry, I'd be remiss in not offering some potential solutions for consideration. We need to consider a new form of funding for our infrastructure needs. With technological improvements and federal requirements associated with fuel efficiency, the gas tax is not sustainable as a funding option. We need streamlined regulation process to allow projects to move forward more quickly. We need to refuse statewide infrastructure report cards and adequately fund the maintenance of our existing systems. I suggest we need to develop a project evaluation process which ranks project selection based on measurable economic benefit so that smart projects are being constructed. In closing, with each passing day, the inability of our country's aging infrastructure to meet the needs of our growing population further threatens our economy and environmental quality of life. Establishing a comprehensive, long-term infrastructure development and maintenance plan must become a priority for our policy leaders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'd be glad to take any questions. You want to get his